So yeah, we have Notori, Sakia, Patchouli, and we have formations relating to each of them. So now we actually have some new formations to show. We also have a lot of stuff in general we can show here, but let's first off show these, well, we have to actually select a new party before we can show the formations off. So now that we have up to 5 people that we can put in a party, we can actually show the full formations rather than just the 4-party ones. Because even though one person, well, 2 people, 3 people, 4 people, they all have their own formations, but most of the formations you'll find in the game are for 5 members for the full party, as you would expect considering how many people you can use. So let's just put Sanai out first. I kind of want to have Patchouli and Commander for just now. And actually we can discuss commanders here as well. So as I've said before, the commander doesn't actually participate in the battle but provides passive buffs and sometimes active buffs if you use their bomb skills. So if Patchouli is your party leader, then your magic damage goes up by 5%. Also, you can then choose to use a commander skill in battle, which will reduce the damage you take if you use 1 bomb, or if you use 3 bombs, it'll increase the magic damage you deal. Some characters make for much better commanders than others. I don't really think that Patchouli is a great commander, to be honest, because as one of the core magic damagers in the game, it's a bit annoying to leave her out of magic damage. You know, because you can't attack with Patchouli when she's the commander, but if she's not the commander, she can't increase your magic damage. So I don't think she's too great a commander, but the commander gets the full experience of the party without having to participate in the battles. And as you can see, Patchy's HP is 4 at level 1. 4 HP. She will die instantly to every attack. And as fun as it is to take a shot every time Patchy faints, their face plants, it's not fun at the start of the game to lose everybody that quickly. So yeah, we're gonna have her in the commander slot for just now. So, formation time. You can see now that we have 5 players, we have a lot more to look at here. So every character has their own unique formation. So Reimu has her Hakurei type here, which increases the attack of the front, the magic attack of the back, and causes the central character to pre-defend. I don't remember if there's a speed penalty for them, but basically pre-defend will increase the character's defense before they move. So it's good for tanky characters to go into the middle here. Obviously, lighter magic users need to go at the back, and then the physical attackers need to go at the front, and then whoever's your tank person goes in the center. Very good formation, just a generally useful formation to have around, so don't forget that. If you're looking for a more magic-based formation, then you can go with a wide-bearing Master Spark formation, which will lower your attack power from the front, but will increase their defense. So the highly targeted front 2 characters are basically looking to be tanks. And then you lower the speed of your back 3 members, but you increase their magic power. The magic power increase here is higher than it is for the previous formation. This is the sort of thing, if you look on the Touhou wiki for the Genesis Sapphire stuff, you'll be able to see what percentages these formations give for power, but obviously you can't see that in game, so you need to look that up. But I believe the magic power up here is it's somewhere between 20 and 30%. It's quite significant, so definitely look at that. If you want a more defensive formation, then the Sunrise one, the Moira Wall, is quite good. So it doesn't do anything to the back 2 members, except prevent them from being targeted very often, because they don't have a high percentage for that. But it lets you increase the defense of your front players. There's no offensive buffs in the formation, so you do need to watch that. You just make sure you don't run out of steam. But it's a good general defensive formation. It's one of the better starting ones, actually. Reimu's and Sanai's formations are really good to begin with. Then you have Aya's formation, which lowers everybody's defense but greatly increases their speed, so if you're just looking to run away from a lot of fights, then you can put this formation on, and you'll get to move first much more often, so you won't lose characters. It's quite nice. Then you have a very physical formation from Sakuya, where you increase your attack and defense, for the front at least, and cut their magic power down. However, the back two characters have pretty big penalties to them. They both lower speed and magic, so I've never really liked to use this formation. But with that said, it's not terrible against Pierce and column attacks, and later on there is a use that you could have for this with tanky characters, but I don't particularly like the idea of only having physical as an option, because the cut to magic power basically like nullifies Marissa, for example. I don't think it's too good. Then you have Pachuli's one, which is very highly magic powered, so this increases your magic attack even more than Marissa's formation, but the front two characters have their defense lowered, so you would need very solid tanks in the front two positions in your party. It's pretty difficult to work with, however that buff that you get for magic is very powerful, and as we've seen in this game already, magic is strong. It's not overpowered compared to physical, but sometimes I actually think it's underpowered compared to physical later on, but it's very, very powerful. Magic is not something you can take lightly in this game, so it's good to have a magic buffing formation. And then finally, Notori's Camouflage, very good against both column and pierce attacks because everybody's lined up diagonally. Also, the further down you go in the formation, the less chance you have of getting targeted. Everybody's evasion goes up, and I think the higher up in the formation you are, the more evasion you get, but I might be wrong on that. It might be the other way around. You might get targeted less and have more evasion down the bottom, but that seems a bit weird, so I'm gonna go with it being the other way around. But yeah, Notori's formation is also very good. I like using this one quite a bit because it means I can have some members that just don't get hit very often, but if they do get attacked, they have a more chance to dodge than they normally would. So there's that. Then I guess we can show the new characters, so you can see every character starts at level 1, and yeah, that can be kind of problematic, but don't worry, they will catch up very quickly because like I said before, if you're under-leveled for an area, you will get an experience bonus when you go into that area and start fighting stuff. So, whilst everybody else gets a normal experience, Sakuya, Notori, and Patchouli might get 2 times the experience for a while, so they do catch up pretty quickly. So let's take a look at them. Sakuya uses a very weird claymore weapon. I don't quite understand why Sakuya, the knife master, uses claymores, but I guess considering knives are like a generic weapon, yeah, maybe she's with that. She's basically one of the physical heavy hitters of the game. She's one of the most powerful characters in the game for a long time. She doesn't have good accuracy, that is a problem, and she can't use shields, so despite using heavy armor, she's surprisingly fragile. But her two-handed sword has immense power, and we'll see that in her growth tree fairly soon. Exceptionally good. Notori is more along the lines of accuracy and elements. She's not especially strong for a physical attacker, but she's element based, which is different from the other physical attackers. She has the capability of changing her affinity to any of the core elements, earth, wind, Earth, Electric, Water, Fire. She has physical attacks for all of them except Earth. And yeah, basically she's kind of like a physical Marissa, but a lot weaker in that sense, in damage-wise. The gun is also a stab-type weapon, and I believe that is the only stab-type weapon that you get on a physically inclined character during the main game. So that's maybe something to bear in mind. Notori is weak to fire and resistant to water naturally, so that's something to note. And then Patchouli is another magic dealer, another very fragile magic dealer. Even Marissa's a little bit bulkier than Patchouli, although both are going to die pretty quickly. But basically, she's a surprisingly physical character as well. She doesn't get any accuracy buffs, which is annoying, but she has physical strength somehow. I don't know how that works, like that does not make any sense for a character whatsoever, but her manuscripts are basically physical axes with like less accuracy but more power, I guess. But her real strength, of course, lies in her magic, and she is basically the AoE Marissa. She doesn't have mystic attacks outside of Philosopher's Stone, her last spell, but she has basically multi-target element attacks, including Earth. So your main Earth attacks are going to come from Patchouli. Basically, she's the element dealer, as you would expect, and she has a lot of status field spell stuff, for changing this later on. Naturally weak against light and resistant to dark, so that's something to bear in mind in certain places. Dark resistance can be very good. And I suppose I didn't really say, obviously Saki is a heavyweight armor user, so we can finally use the heavyweight armor. Shield is kind of pointless though, because the shield really doesn't do anything for Sakuya, because you don't want to be using anything but her two-handed sword, it's just that good. Notori is a middleweight, so the same as Reimu, Sane, Aya, and Patchouli can only wear lightweight stuff. Now, if you use Patchouli's books, then she can use shields, but Patchouli's books are not especially good. They don't give much magic attack, they only buff light and dark spells, sometimes mystic as well, but they're her bomb spells, and they're not the ones you're normally going to be using. So most of the time you're going to be using a staff on Patchouli, which means that she doesn't really get to use shields either, which is a bit of a shame, but yeah. So that is a brief overview of the characters, so let's just go ahead and enter the next area, because there's one other thing I want to show before this ends, before this part ends. So yeah, we'll get to the cutscene for the opening cure, Faster Magic, blah blah blah, we don't know if it's Alice, but Reimu's like, good enough, we're going to deal with that. But yeah, we haven't had the chance to fully investigate stuff yet. Because Pachi doesn't like going outside. Because she hates sunlight. Apparently sunlight like damages her hair or something, so yeah. Well, yeah, why do stuff yourself when you can have somebody else do it for you, right? That's Patchouli's logic. So yeah, we're back at Marissa's place. She doesn't really want to do anything now, but Reimu's like, we have to get this done, let's just do it and go. And it is not confirmed that Alice is the culprit, but Reimu just doesn't care. She's like, we're gonna beat her up anyway. Because that's what Reimu is like. Yes, that is how you got caught up in this, Sakuya. And yeah, this is what I want to show off. Now we can see Kurindo. So, before we properly enter stage 3, we are going to take a quick stop there so I can show the synthesis stuff that we did not see before. Yeah, sure, let's do that. We'll go if there's a need. Well, I'm telling you there is a need. Okay, let's go. Yes, so there is a need for this. Actually, before we do that, we should really talk to Akio as well, because as stated before, Akio basically gives you stuff every time you clear a main stage. So, yeah, I've said that one before. Wait, are you not gonna tell us about, you're not gonna give us stuff? We defeated Remilia! You're supposed to give us stuff. Don't be a jerk, Akio. Apparently she doesn't give you anything off the first stage. Fine, whatever. She will after beating Alice. Because, yeah, spoilers, we have to fight Alice. Pretty sure that was known by everyone as soon as we started stuff there, because, let's face it, Reimu is in the mood to beat people up, so yeah. So yes, we have indeed brought some unusual faces, because we are visiting to learn about synthesis. Customers, heck yeah. Ouch. So harsh. But yeah, Rinosuke is half yokai, so he's not too badly affected by all of this, which is good. So yeah, not so much of effect. Is that so? Yeah, basically we want to know about synthesis. Itching to put that to use? Well, now we have a chance. Also, Sanae is unbelievably happy about being in here. Probably because, well, she is from the outside world, right? And the stuff in here are relics from the outside world, so yeah. Very reassuring. Oh, it's perfectly safe. Yeah, so basically it's just combining stuff. We need the recipe to do so, and then we have materials for it, and we actually do have some of them, but I'm fine with that, of being told about not having them so that we can see stuff. So yeah, this is where we go to craft new character items. So the generic armor and weapon stuff you will find during stages and off of enemies, but the character specific gear you have to craft. So we have stuff for all of the main characters, and we have a new one for Sakuya and Patchouli and Notori, obviously, and then we have new armors for some of them. You don't always get new armors for every character at every stage, but you do get them sort of alternating. So if, say, Reimu got one the first time, Sanae would get one next time maybe, and so on. So that was one for Sanae, one for Sakuya, and that's it for the first set. And then we have a couple of accessories that we can make to protect against certain status conditions. Yeah, petrification is one as well, blindness, blah 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 blah. And then Berserk is a mind control status where you can only do physical attacks against a random opponent, so that's fine. Control is the mind control thing I said before. Curse is a really annoying status condition where you take damage in proportion to how much you deal, which includes if you heal people for some reason. It's kind of weird. And stun, I believe, is just a block against quick status, but I'd have to take a look. And yes, instant death is a status, the thing that, not really a status, it's a thing that can happen in this game, so that's annoying. And then the permanent status conditions are categorized into 3 different types. So disable for ones that stop your movement or otherwise debilitate you. Stuff like the paralysis, sleep. I think blindness and stuff comes in that as well. Oh wait, no, that might be restrict. Yeah, restrict is then the stuff that stops you from taking certain actions. So, whilst paralysis, sleep, petrification are all disable statuses, restrict is stuff like blind, confusion, and silence. And then the spiritual guard is for mind control, I believe, which is obviously the ones that stop you from being able to take actions by yourself. And then we do actually get synthesis recipes for creating the synthesis materials as well, which we'll get into how that works later. Pretty mirrors are used for shields, magic metals are used for staff making, and then steel is used for armor. So yeah, if we have all the materials that we need, then we can make whatever item we want. You may have noticed there is no actual money in this game, so the materials, you basically craft stuff for free. You just need the materials and the correct recipe to craft. Of course, Reimu's dumb, so she doesn't understand what's going on, but yeah, that's essentially how it works. So you can craft just specific stuff, or if you don't know exactly what you want, or if you just want to see all the stuff that's available, then you can go ahead and take a look in the menu here. So the stuff that we got from Akio originally, like the Gaia Blade, if we had an Earth Shard then we could make this. This actually has an element affinity to it. We'll explain how that works when we get something that has an element affinity, but essentially it's an earth-based weapon, which is pretty good. And then if we look, say, at the Gohei here, then it has an exorcism trait that we won't really need to care about for a while, so again, we'll explain that a bit later. But you can see it increases the amulet damage from Reimu's attacks. So her Hakurai amulet or her fantasy seal, because it does spirit sign too, they get a damage buff when you're wielding the Gohei. Now, it takes a donation box, which is her specific crafting item, and a couple other things to make, so obviously we can't make them just now because we don't have any of these things, but of course the game will be giving us these fairly soon. But I just kind of wanted to show a little bit of what we are dealing with, and yeah, like Marissa gets more bombs and double MP regen, so if you are going to use Marissa's rune weapons, you definitely want to have the Vampiric Staff 3 points into her broom at the very least. Preferably you'd want 10 points when you get there eventually, because having passive regen is also really good. But yeah, that's for another time. Sanai specific weapons tend to have added effects to them, either poison or paralysis usually. Sometimes they have multi-strike stuff as well, but usually it's one of those two. And then they lower the damage you take from poison and protect you from certain status conditions. Again, usually poison or paralysis. What else have we got? We have Aya's weapons are usually going to increase your evasion. They also don't have a whole lot of accuracy, but you know, it's an axe-like weapon, so it's to be expected. Sakuya's weapons are where the real power lies. So Sakuya's gimmick is Slayer effects most of the time. So Slayer is something we haven't actually come across yet, but basically every monster and every one of your party has their own class, like warrior, spellcaster, reptile, etc. And if you have a Slayer on your weapon for that particular type of monster, you will do massively increased damage. Sometimes 2 or maybe 3 or even 4 times the amount of damage you would normally deal. So Sakuya basically gets a whole bunch of different Slayers on her different tiers of weapon, and she can do ridiculous amounts of damage as a result. Patchouli, we have, as I said before, light and dark enhancement, which is a bit annoying. She does at least get a good resistance to spellcaster inhibiting traits. Like here, she's very, very good against silence, which would stop you casting spells. And she does get magic exorcism. I mean, it's okay if you want to use her books, but I just don't think they're as good as the staffs that you get during the game. They don't give you as much magic attack as the staffs do, and staves really, and they just don't seem as good. Exorcism isn't really as important for most of the game as just the damage that you would get from the staff weapons. And then finally, Notori also has some Slayer stuff. It's much more specialized than Sakuya. Sakuya's Slayer changes depending on what weapon she's got, but Notori generally only sticks to like warriors, magicians, sometimes maybe giants or Tsukiyomis and stuff like that. But what Notori's weapons tend to do, this one doesn't, but what they tend to do later on is they will increase, they will basically have a chance to do like AoE targets. So you could end up hitting all of your opponent's party, or just a column, or whatever, you know, your shot might pierce through a row. And that's basically what Notori's weapons are for. Some of her weapons have got really good accuracy, most of them kinda don't, but yeah, she shoots stuff, that's what you'd expect. I guess this is the first chance to show the specific shields that we have here as well. So I briefly mentioned these when I was talking about shields before, but if you see a shield with this symbol, the yellow-red one, that means that any character can use it, no matter what the weight class. But as you see, it's very, very specialized, so it increases your defense drastically against slash type attacks, this sword barrier, but it doesn't really defend very well against anything else. Now, unlike armors and stuff like that, if you see a symbol like the triangle here next to a attack type, that does not mean that you take more damage from that attack, which is actually what I thought when I first played this game, but it's not. What it means is that it doesn't defend very often against that type of attack. It can defend against it, but it's less than the 40% activation rate for the shield. But if you have an increased sting like the star here, that basically means that star will always activate here. I think it might work on the same multipliers, so you may have, I think, a 20% chance to activate on stab and strike, but 8 times 40, you'd have like a 200% chance, more than that actually. You'd have a stupid high chance, basically more than 100% to activate on slash attacks. So that is that. You can see the physical defense this particular shield gives is really high though, so if we got enough pretty mirrors we might consider making it, but I don't know. There's one for each of the types here obviously, and then you can make specific armors if you want for defending against certain stuffs, which is fine. And then all of these accessories, you need particular parts, and you defend against one status condition quite well. The ones that defend against more conditions don't do it very well. You can see you get a 25% resistance to the confusion, blind, silent stuff. And then finally, if you want to make the synthesis materials, you need Pretty Mirror for the iron, and basically you need Pretty Mirror for all of these ones. So iron, rock, and bamboo, they used to be made in a different way. The way they used to be made is, I think, the same way the magic metal, the same way that this is still made, is if you wanted to make, say, an iron, you would need to use a bamboo, a rock, and a magic metal. That was before Weekend, so now you don't actually do that, and it's much better for it, trust me, because you ended up having a whole ton of pretty mirrors and magic metals, because magic metals aren't used very often, and you couldn't use them, and it was really annoying, and now you can siphon those off and use them for other stuff. So if you want to make a pretty mirror for whatever reason, you can do that. Steel still requires one of each of these, but we can get steel from enemies as well, so that's fine. And that's basically it. So that's most of what we're going to be doing here in Kurendao. There is one other thing was related to this machine over here, which we shall do next time just before starting the Forest of Magic. So, this has been GamerCow playing the Genius of Sephiroth Weekend Edition, going on maybe a little bit longer than we would have thought, you know, after the boss fight, but to be fair, there's a lot of stuff to sort of explain in terms of how we'll be getting new equipment later. So, yeah, next time we start Stage 3.